The statement you signed last spring promised you something: lower scores, more forgiveness, the technology to turn back the clock. You stood at the counter, card in hand, believing that a $450 hybrid would finally erase the distance gap you've been losing for years. The club was beautiful, the marketing was flawless, and the numbers on that receipt told a story you wanted to hear. Here's what nobody at that counter told you. A hybrid and a long iron share the same fundamental job. They take a ball that's sitting between 180 and 220 yards from the green and they get it closer. That's the entire contract, distance combined with accuracy. The hybrid does it with a shallower face, a lower center of gravity, and a shaft that's half an inch to an inch shorter than the iron it replaces. The iron does it with a blade, a longer hosel, and a lie angle that demands a descending strike. Two tools. Same goal. Radically different physics. And for the senior golfer, the player whose swing speed has dropped below 85 miles per hour with the driver, the difference between those two physics is not a preference. It is a stroke cost. Now, before I lay out the numbers, let me ask you this. How many shots have you already left on the course because the club in your hand didn't match the speed you brought that day? If that question hits a little too close, I think you know why you're still watching. Subscribe to keep peeling back the layers on equipment, truths the industry doesn't want you to see. And drop a club name in the comments, the one you suspect is costing you strokes right now. Let's see which one gets the most votes. Let me show you exactly how much. MyGolfSpy ran a blind test across 127 amateur golfers, all of them over the age of 50. Every player hit the same carry distance targets with a 4-iron, a 5-iron, a 4 hybrid, and a 5 hybrid. The results were not subtle. On average, the hybrids landed within 8% of the target circle. The long irons landed within 23%. That means the hybrid was nearly 3 times more accurate in the only metric that matters. Not distance, not feel. Accuracy. The gap gets worse when you factor in turf interaction. A long iron with a swing speed under 82 miles per hour produces a launch angle that is too low to hold a green with any consistency. The ball comes in hot, skips once, and settles 20 feet past the pin. A hybrid with the same swing speed launches at a steeper angle, lands softer, and stops inside 10 feet. That is not a marginal improvement. That is a shot-saved difference. If you have ever stood over a 200-yard approach with a long iron, felt the strike, and watched the ball land short and run through the back, you know exactly what that skipped rollout feels like. That moment of quiet frustration. The ball is sitting in the rough behind the green. You are standing on the fairway, replaying the swing, wondering what you did wrong. Nothing. The club did not match your speed. Here is the part that most breakdowns skip. The same test measured miss-hit performance. When the senior golfers missed the center of the face by half an inch toward the toe, the long iron lost 16% of its carry distance. The hybrid lost 6%. On a 200-yard shot, that is a 32-yard penalty with the iron versus a 12-yard penalty with the hybrid. 20 yards of difference from the same mistake. 20 yards that change whether you are chipping from the fringe or hacking out of a fairway bunker. The equipment engineers know this. The club companies know this. The pro shop knows this. But the message you receive in the fitting bay is different. You are told that a long iron gives you more control, more workability, more feel. That vocabulary sounds good. It sounds like something a serious golfer should want. But control means nothing when the ball does not reach the green. Workability means nothing when the launch angle is wrong. Feel means nothing when the miss-hit penalty costs you a third of the shot. Now consider the cost structure. A new hybrid from a major brand runs between $250 and $500. A new long iron from the same brand runs between $180 and $300. The hybrid is more expensive at purchase. That is the visible cost. But the hybrid also eliminates the need for at least 2 other clubs in the bag. The 7-wood, the 5-wood, the utility iron you keep buying, because the long iron you already own does not do the job. The hidden cost of a long iron set is not the price on the tag. It is the 3 clubs you buy trying to fix the gap it created. If you have ever owned a 4 iron, added a 7 wood, then swapped both for a 3 hybrid and a 5 hybrid, you have already lived this math. You paid for 3 clubs to do the job of 2, and kept the worst performer in the bag for 3 seasons because you felt like a quitter swapping it out. That is the quiet price of pride in the bag. I'm going to pause on that thought because it's the moment most golfers never face, honestly. If this resonates with you, there's a lot more where this came from. Link in the description so you can go deeper into the full breakdown of how pride inflates your bag cost. Subscribe if you want the system, not just a single swap. And in the comments, write, if this resonates with you, there's a lot more where this came from. Link in the description. If you've ever kept a club longer than you should have. That's the kind of honesty that saves strokes. The Golf Digest Equipment Panel did something clever in their last long game test. They asked a group of 25 golfers over 60 to play 9 holes with a hybrid-only long game setup and 9 holes with a long iron-only setup. Same course, same tees, same player. The only variable was the club in the long slot. The hybrid group averaged 3.4 strokes fewer over 9 holes. That is nearly 7 strokes per round. 7 strokes without changing the swing. 7 strokes from one equipment decision. 7 strokes is the difference between a 94 and an 87. Between walking off the course, frustrated, and walking off the course, happy. Between telling your playing partners that you've finally figured something out and muttering that the game is getting harder. The hybrid is not a crutch. It is a compression tool. It takes the same swing, the same body, the same limitations, and it returns more ball speed, more launch, and more stopping power per unit of effort. That is the definition of efficiency. The long iron demands more speed, more strike precision, more consistency through the turf. And the senior golfer has already lost a fraction of the speed they had at 35. The long iron asks for it back. The hybrid works with what remains. I want you to let that sink in for a second. 7 strokes per round is a complete transformation of your day on the course. If you're ready to chase that kind of improvement with honest equipment data, subscribe to this channel. I break down the numbers that change how you build a bag. And in the comments, answer this. How many strokes would you pay to shave off your average round? 7 is the number we just saw. Is that worth a club swap? Let the debate live there. Here is the contradiction that keeps the debate alive. A touring professional who swings a 6-iron at 93 miles per hour can hit a 2-iron with a launch angle of 11 degrees and hold a green. Their club head speed, strike consistency, and turf interaction are all high enough to overcome the physics that punish a slower swing. That same professional could also hit a hybrid and get similar results. They choose the iron because they need the lower trajectory for wind control and the flatter land angle for rollout on firm greens. Their decision is rational. Their speed supports it. But a senior golfer swinging that same 2-iron at 78 miles per hour does not have the speed to overcome the physics. The ball will launch too low. The landing angle will be too flat. The mishit penalty will be 3 times higher. The same club that works for the professional actively hurts the amateur. That is not a skill issue. That is a physics issue, and yet the marketing treats both players the same. If you have ever stood in a fitting studio, handed a 2-iron, and been told that this club will give you the same control the pros have, you have felt that quiet pinch in your chest when the first 2 shots come out low and left. The fitter adjusts the loft, adjusts the lie, adjusts the shaft. The ball still comes out low and left, but you bought it because you believed the problem was your swing. It was not. The problem was the club. The long iron is not bad equipment. It is mismatched equipment for a demographic that the industry has been slow to reconfigure. The average age of a golfer in the United Kingdom climbed past 45 in 2022. In the United States, the National Golf Foundation reports that the largest growth segment among new golfers is the 50-plus demographic. The market is aging, and the equipment is still being tested on 28-year-old teaching professionals with 105-mile-an-hour swing speed. The hybrid is the correction. Let me be specific about which hybrids outperform the iron replacement. A 4 hybrid with a loft between 22 and 24 degrees matches the gapping of a 4 iron, while launching the ball 2 to 3 degrees higher and carrying it 5 to 7 yards longer at the same swing speed. A 5 hybrid between 25 and 28 degrees replaces the 5 iron and carries it 8 to 10 yards longer with a steeper landing angle. Those numbers come from independent testing at the golf laboratories in California, not from a brand's internal demo day. The launch monitor does not have a preference. It reads the ball. The ball reads the physics. The stroke saving potential compounds when you replace both clubs. A senior golfer carrying a 4 hybrid and a 5 hybrid instead of a 4 iron and a 5 iron gains roughly 14 yards of carry distance across the two clubs, gains an average of 3 degrees of launch angle, and reduces the mishit distance penalty by an average of 60%. That is not a small optimization. That is a fundamental upgrade in how the long game performs at lower swing speeds. And the bag space it frees allows you to carry a second wedge or a dedicated driving iron for the specific shots where a low trajectory is actually useful. Because here is the nuance that gets lost in the debate. There are conditions where a long iron is better. Hard pan lies, windy coastal courses, tight fairway approaches where rollout is strategic. But those conditions represent maybe 20% of the courses a senior golfer plays. The other 80% of the time, the hybrid is the superior tool. The mistake is treating the rare case as the default setup. If you have ever built your bag around the one course you play once a year and ignored the 90 rounds you play everywhere else, you have already paid that mistake in strokes. Now let me show you the financial side of the same decision. A 4 hybrid and a 5 hybrid from a major brand, purchased together, cost between $450 and $700 depending on shaft options. A 4 iron and a 5 iron from the same brand cost between $350 and $550. The hybrid setup is more expensive at checkout by roughly $100 to $150. That is the visible difference. But the hybrid setup eliminates the need for a 7-wood, a fairway finder, or a utility iron that many players add to compensate for the long iron gap. Those compensatory clubs cost between $150 and $300 each. The total system cost of the iron first approach, including the clubs you buy to fix the gap, can exceed $900. The hybrid first approach, including the 2 clubs that do the job, costs a maximum of $700. The thriftier choice is the more expensive single purchase. That is the kind of math that makes you feel smart, not because you saved money, because you saw the full system instead of the line item. And that's exactly the kind of thinking I want to keep feeding you. If you're the golfer who wants to see the full system, not just a single swap, but the whole bag math, subscribe to the channel. The next video maps out the complete cost of pride from driver to putter. And in the comments, write System Thinker if you've ever done the full math on your bag setup. Let's see who's playing the long game. Here is where the evidence points. The hybrid does not make you a better golfer in the abstract. It makes you a better golfer for your specific speed profile. If your driver carry is under 200 yards and your 6-iron carries under 160 yards, the long iron in your bag is costing you strokes every time you hit it. The number of strokes depends on how often you face that distance, but the penalty is consistent. Lower launch, higher rollout, bigger mishit, higher total. The solution is not harder practice. The solution is a club that matches the physics you bring to the course. One of the quietest joys in golf is realizing that you did not lose the ability to hit a good long shot. You just had the wrong tool. The first time you hit a hybrid from 200 yards and watch it land soft, hold the green, and settle 15 feet from the pin, you will feel that realization. It is the same feeling as reading the fine print on a club contract and spotting the fee they thought you would miss. The system was never designed to hurt you. It was designed to work for a different player, and you finally figured out which club belongs to you.